He went through their messages over 100 times. Each reread felt like peeling off a scab that refused to heal. Elias didn't understand what he could have said to make her call off their 2-year relationship. They'd weathered worse things. Time zones, distance, silence. But this? A sudden goodbye after 4 years of knowing every version of each other. He understood that love could fade, but not like this. Not without a reason. For days after, his apartment sat in quiet disarray. Coffee cups, undeveloped rolls of film, and the sour smell of something unwashed. His phone stayed face down on the table, the screen cracked like it too had taken the breakup personally. He told himself that isolation was good for art, but all it did was amplify the low hum of his thoughts. Elias had always been a street photographer, the kind who chased sunlight and motion, not people. But she had changed that. She'd been the one to tell him, "You don't just take photos, Eli. You look like you're waiting for something to look back." Now, with her gone, the waiting felt unbearable. He couldn't look through a lens without remembering her voice threading through the shutter click. By the third Saturday, the loneliness turned to restlessness. He left his camera bag half-packed and wandered downtown to the old flea market by the pier. Rows of mismatched stalls leaned under the weight of forgotten things. Record players, chipped dolls, yellowed postcards of strangers smiling into dust. He liked places like this, pockets of the world that smelled of rust and memory. That was where he saw it. The camera sat half-buried among cracked lenses and tangled straps. A vintage analog body, heavy and black, its leather worn soft. He picked it up. It fit in his hands perfectly, almost eagerly. The serial number had been scratched out.
Beautiful piece, isn't it? But it's not meant to be used again.
Why not? It looks fine to me.
The last owner didn't end well. Said the camera takes more than pictures.
Everything takes something.
Elias pulled bills from his wallet. The vendor hesitated before accepting them, as if a priest were handing over a relic. He slung the camera over his shoulder and left with the strange, weighty thrill of new ownership. That night, rain dragged its fingers across the window as Elias set up in his tiny studio. Only then did he notice the camera wasn't empty. A half-used roll of film clicked softly inside. He considered tossing it. Old film usually meant fogged exposures, but curiosity had always been his worst habit. Under the red bulb of his darkroom, he worked carefully, gloved hands steady, breath slow. The negatives unfurled like secrets. Most frames were ordinary, street corners, parked cars, a blurred crowd. But one image caught him mid-motion. A woman stood mid-turn, hair lifted slightly by the wind. Her eyes, sharp, alive, locked straight onto the lens. The photo's focus was unnaturally perfect, every eyelash defined, every shadow deliberate. She looked surprised, as if someone had called her name just before the shutter fell. Elias leaned closer. The longer he stared, the more depth he saw behind her gaze, as though the photo weren't flat, but layered with a distance he could fall through. The hairs on his arms rose. He adjusted the light, squinting at the corner of the frame. Faint reflections shimmered in her pupils, something that looked like a street sign maybe, or... him? No, impossible. The roll had to be decades old. He placed the wet print on the line to dry. The chemical smell thickened around him, sharp and metallic. For a moment, he thought he heard a whisper, soft as breath through fabric. He froze. The only sound was the drip of developer into the tray. Still, the air felt different. He spoke without meaning to.
Who are you?
The question floated uselessly in the dark. He half laughed, shaking off the chill. Too many late nights, too much caffeine. But when he looked back, something about the woman's eyes seemed wider, her pupils swallowing more of the light. He told himself it was moisture on the print, distortion from drying chemicals. Yet when he turned away, the sensation of being watched lingered, like static brushing his skin. Elias carried the photo to his living room desk. The storm had eased, leaving the city damp and quiet. He propped the print beside his coffee mug, unable to stop glancing at it. The woman's gaze followed wherever he moved. It wasn't aggressive, it was patient, almost tender. He fetched his digital camera, thinking he'd document the uncanny clarity of the image. When he snapped a quick shot, the camera shutter stuttered, 3 rapid clicks, unprompted. The screen went black. A low buzz hummed from the analog camera on the table, faint but discernible, like film winding itself. Elias stepped closer. He muttered absurdly, as if soothing a pet.
Easy.
The sound stopped. He laughed nervously and turned off the lights. The apartment felt colder. In the dark, the photo's glossy surface caught the faint blue of streetlight seeping through the blinds. Her eyes gleamed. He should have gone to bed then. He should have tossed the picture in a drawer and forgotten it. Instead, he sat watching her face until dawn began to bleach the edges of the room. When the first sunlight touched the print, he thought he saw her lips part. Just a trick of light, he told himself. But he could have sworn she blinked. Sleep forgot Elias that night. When morning came, he was still at the desk, head pillowed on his folded arms beside the photograph. The light was pale and thin, filtering through half-closed blinds. His neck ached. His coffee was cold. And the photo, he noticed with a dull, waking confusion, had changed. At first he thought fatigue was making him hallucinate. But no, the difference was subtle, unmistakable. The woman's head, once tilted slightly away, was now facing him completely. Her expression was softer, her mouth parted as though she'd been about to speak. He blinked hard and rubbed his eyes. Nothing changed. The image was still there, familiar, intimate, wrong. For the next hour he sat unmoving, watching sunlight creep slowly across her printed face. He didn't feel frightened. Not yet. What he felt was closer to curiosity, the kind that sinks its teeth deep into artists and madmen alike. By noon, he convinced himself it was a mistake of memory, some optical trick, the mind filling in the gaps, the same way grief distorts truth. He spent the day taking pictures in the city, trying to escape the growing unease. He shot reflections in puddles, faces at bus stops, pigeons rising like ash from the streets. But when he developed the photos that evening, the world tilted again. In the corner of a frame, a candid of a woman selling flowers, stood her. Faint, almost translucent, like an overexposed ghost. The same face, the same wind-tossed hair. She wasn't looking at the lens this time, but at him, from across the photograph's frozen street. Elias's heart hammered. He dropped the negative into the tray and stepped back. His throat went dry. It couldn't be real. Film ghosting, double exposure, bad light leak. He grasped at every explanation. But the rest of the roll was flawless. Only that frame carried her, vivid as a heartbeat. He stayed up late again, reviewing his digital shots on the computer, zooming in until pixels blurred. Each image where she appeared, just barely, felt like a whisper. I see you. Days blurred, nights stretched. The pattern deepened. Every new photograph included her somewhere. A reflection in a shop window, the shadow behind a passing car, a blur of fabric that matched the dress from the first print. Each time, she was closer. Elias stopped photographing strangers and began photographing only spaces where she might appear. Empty benches, hallways, and the glass door to his apartment building. He developed the film obsessively, each session a mixture of dread and anticipation. It became a ritual: the red light, the chemical smell, the sound of dripping liquid as the image swam into being. And always, eventually, her. She began to change. The expressions were no longer neutral. Sometimes she smiled faintly. Sometimes she frowned, her eyes clouded with sadness. Once, he swore her lips were forming a word, his name, maybe, that the print distorted before he could be sure. He started talking to her. At first, it was out of exhaustion, a coping mechanism for solitude. But as days passed, he began to believe she heard him. He'd pour her a cup of coffee, leave it by her frame. He'd tell her about the rain, about the pigeons nesting in the roof drain, about how silence felt heavier at night now, pressing against his ribs. Elias spoke, his voice breaking on the edges of sleep deprivation.
You're the only one left who listens. You don't even have to answer.
That night, as he was drifting off, the shutter of his analog camera clicked from across the room. He jolted upright. The camera sat where he'd left it, its lens cap off. He stared for a long time, breath shallow, until the silence returned. Finally, trembling, he developed the role that had been inside. The photos were all of him, sleeping. The angle was perfect, intimate, almost tender. Each frame closer than the last, as though whoever held the camera had been leaning in. In the final image, a dark silhouette stood above him, hand extended toward his face. He stopped taking pictures for a week after that. He couldn't bear to see what might come next. But the absence of her, the waiting, hurt more than the fear. He began dreaming of her instead. In those dreams, she wasn't just a face. She had a voice, low and fragile, like film unraveling.
Elias, don't stop looking.
He'd wake with her name on his tongue, though he didn't know it. Sometimes he'd find the camera moved from its place, resting beside his bed, as if it had crawled closer during the night. Then came the rainstorm. Lightning spilled across the city, thunder rolling like ocean surf. The power flickered and died, plunging the apartment into a kind of wet, flickering twilight. Elias lit a candle, sat near the desk, and stared at the photo again. The woman's expression was no longer gentle, it was pleading. He touched the edge of the print. The paper felt warm.
What do you want from me?
The shutter clicked once, loud in the dark. He turned slowly. The camera was aimed straight at him. The candle flame trembled.
Is this you? Are you alive?
Silence. Then, faintly, a smell. Jasmine, rain-soaked hair. The same scent his ex had worn. He turned back to the photo. The woman's features blurred, reshaped for an instant. His ex's face flickered there, then vanished. Elias stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. He knocked the candle over, wax spilled like blood across the desk. The flame died. In the dark, something moved, a soft rustle, like cloth brushing wood. He froze. The camera clicked again, and again. He groped for his phone, but the screen stayed black, unresponsive. His breathing came in gasps. From the far wall, the faint white glow of the photograph pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. He took a step toward it, hand shaking, then another. Her face in the picture was closer now, too close, her pupils black mirrors swallowing the frame. He reached out, fingertips brushing the print. It was cold, then wet. His thumb came away streaked with something dark, developer fluid, or blood. He stared, entranced, as the liquid rippled across the image and her eyes rolled toward him, alive and wet and seeing. The camera whirred, film winding itself, the last sound before everything went black. He woke up on the floor hours later. The candle had burned out completely. The photograph was gone from the desk. The analog camera sat open, its back panel ajar, the roll inside fully exposed to light. He developed what was left, hands trembling. There was only one image that survived. The same room, his own apartment, empty. Except for the faint outline of a woman sitting where he used to sit, facing the camera. Her eyes were calm, patient, and endless. Elias stared at the print until dawn. Then he whispered, as if to someone across a great distance.
I missed you.
And in the glass pane of the window, the reflection of the woman smiled back. The days that followed felt unreal. Elias drifted through them in silence, moving like a ghost through his own life. His walls were bare now, except for one frame, the photo of the woman, or what was left of it. It had somehow reappeared, no longer glossy and crisp, but textured, like old skin. She was still there, still watching. But something was changing. The background behind her, the park bench, the cobbled street, had begun to blur, dissolve into the same pale grey that filled Elias's own apartment. The world between them was thinning. He stopped eating, stopped calling friends. The only thing that felt real was the pulse of light that shimmered faintly through the photo when the room went dark, as if she breathed behind the paper. On the third night, he dreamt again. He was back in the darkroom, but this time it wasn't his. The red light glowed like a heartbeat, and photographs hung dripping from invisible strings, thousands of faces, all staring at him. And there she was, standing beneath them, barefoot, hair floating like smoke. His voice trembled, but not from fear. It was something else now, longing, raw and electric.
Why me?
Her smile was sorrowful.
Because you looked. No one else ever did.
When he reached out, she placed her hand on his chest. Cold, then warm, then gone. He woke up gasping. The room was freezing, though the heater was on. And there, on his chest, a faint smudge of developer fluid in the shape of a handprint. Elias knew then that whatever existed between them wasn't confined to film anymore. That evening, he set up his camera one last time. He carefully arranged the lights, closed the blinds, and sat facing the tripod, the photo behind him. A quiet hum filled the air, like static before a storm. He adjusted the focus, breathing slowly. His reflection in the lens stared back, fractured by the gleam of glass.
This is the last one. After this, I'll know if it's real.
The shutter clicked. Then again. And again. Unprompted, wild, mechanical. He tried to stand, but the air thickened, syrupy. The smell of chemicals flooded the room, sharp, nostalgic, intoxicating. The walls flickered. For a heartbeat, the apartment wasn't his anymore. It was hers. The same stone bench, the same fading sky, and she stood there, smiling faintly, reaching toward him. She spoke, her voice trembling in the air.
Elias, come be with me.
He stumbled forward. His hand passed through the photograph's surface like water. The texture rippled, pulling him in. For one terrible, beautiful moment, he felt her fingers lace with his, cold, desperate, alive. And then the world inverted. Light burned. The camera fell, clattering to the floor. When the neighbours broke in 2 days later, drawn by the constant dripping sound, the apartment was empty. The camera lay shattered, its lens cracked. The bathtub was filled with water stained faintly pink from chemical residue. No sign of Elias. Except one photo left to dry on the string line. It showed the park as it appeared in the original image. But now, the woman sat on the bench holding a camera in her lap. And beside her, smiling faintly, was Elias. Weeks passed. The story made its way to a few online photography forums under the headline, "Missing Artist, Strange Photo Find," before fading into digital rumour. Some claimed the image changed slightly when downloaded, that if you stared too long, the pair in the photo began to move. Others swore that if you left your camera on overnight, sometimes the shutter clicked once on its own, and when you developed the film, there they were. Elias and the woman, sitting quietly, looking straight at you. And if you were lonely enough, if your heart ached deep enough, she'd blink. For you. I hope you've enjoyed today's story. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and feel free to leave a comment. Until next time, I wish you a great day.